news release came across my desk, and I saw Yale developing iPad video game to prevent HIV infection among young people. First of all, it startled me because I went on to read how young. And then I started to think about the entire world is gaming, especially children, adults, of course, playing Farmville on Facebook and whatever else. But this seems like an amazing way to get to children at the right age. So how did this come about that you started getting a team together and making a game?
So I think you hit on the key features, which is one that that everybody's gaming, and that we need to start young in terms of certain types of interventions. So I've worked in this field for a while in the area of in HIV treatment, HIV prevention. I've worked with patients.
For a long time.
For a long time.
Mostly adults?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So I'm trained in adult medicine, and that's the population that I've been working with, and also patients who have problems with substance abuse. And so what I became aware of was the fact that that these were all sort of the end results of probably early riskier behaviors, and that if only we could turn back the clock and address these early on when kids are really young, when kids are sort of open books, and really focus on primary prevention.
And learning a lot about life in the junior high ages, but certainly before in this day and age.
Even earlier, right? So kids are growing up, I mean, it sounds cliche, but so fast. And so to really get to them earlier on, and that's not particularly novel, but I think where this came from is that between my husband and I, we have 5 kids at home, and everyone was gaming. Everybody was either on a computer or a phone.
And they're gaming in the same room on different games next to each other.
Right, on a console, on a phone, and they're completely engaged and wrapped up, and that's where they are. And if you look around, actually, that's where most of us are at this point. And so it seemed like if we could use that as a vehicle to capture these kids where they are, where they want to be, but use it to kind of send them the messages that we want to send them, healthy messages.
How bad is the HIV situation in the state of Connecticut?
You know, Connecticut
With young people, I'm talking about.
Right. Connecticut is not, I mean, one of the things that we're really focusing on is not just specifically HIV, but really about risk reduction. So, you know, in developing this game, teaching them skills to reduce their risk that would really translate to a lot of different things, whether it's drug and alcohol use, whether it's unsafe driving, texting while driving, whatever, you know, are sort of the real sort of target dangerous areas that kids get involved with. The HIV epidemic in Connecticut is certainly, you know, a problem. It's a problem everywhere.
In the inner cities especially.
Right. It's not, I mean, if you look at other areas such as Washington, D.C., where it's really just, you know, exploding, or certain rural areas in the South. But in Connecticut, as in a lot of inner city communities, what we see is a lot of risky, you know, environments, you know, such that someone may not engage in very risky behaviors, but their environment is so filled with risk that it's a much more...
That you have to do something.
Right,
so
right.
This program came out of, this is the first game coming out of something called Play to Prevent.
Right.
Play to Prevent got a grant. This had to do with the Shrivers. And somehow she got involved in this.
So this is through the National Institutes of Health. So the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development is the Eunice Kennedy Shriver NIH Institute. And we applied for a grant to develop this game, and it was funded, and it helped us create Play to Prevent as an initiative that we're building on. This is the first game that we're doing.
So as we turn on the iPad to figure out how to show folks how this works.
Sure.
This first game is called PlayFoward.
Right, and it's called PlayFoward Elm City Stories, which is shout out to the Elm City, which is New Haven.
That's great.
And again, because this has been very much of a community-based project, and you know, this is very much still in development, so it's still got bugs.
What's interesting about this is that you have New Haven children helping you to develop this, so that you can get it into the hands of kids all over the place that they will actually engage in this game and learn something, but you have to make it very cool.
Right.
And that's why you have the kids involved.
Right. And the fact is that kids, whether they're in the inner city or the suburbs or the countryside or whatever, a lot of these themes transcend. It's not about just inner city kids, a lot of these things. But the fact that we really wanted to focus this on, Elm City, this is more of an urban, flavor
So
to
what
it.
has been developed with kids? Did they tell you color scheme? What did they tell you when you said, we want you to get involved in this?
Right. So everything. I mean, what we did is the bottom line is what we're hoping to do is create behavior change. So this is not just an educational game. It's really a game that we're hoping will teach these kids skills that they can learn in the game that then translate to real life. And that the game experience will actually be one that they're allowed to make mistakes, they're allowed to explore and test and fail, so that they can learn it in the game and they won't do it in real life. So, for example, like if you want to teach a kid how to cross the street, in a game you could teach them how to cross the street, and it's okay if they get hit by the car. You'd like them to get hit in the game, right? But if they can avoid it happening in real life. So the idea is, can we give them a meaningful, compelling experience in the game that they learn the mistakes, I mean, also the plus the minus, and then can translate that to real life.
How does this work?
So this is sort of our homepage, if you will, kind of around the lifeline. And the first part of the game is that your player creates their avatar, and
so they can be anybody they want to.
Right, and with this game, what's a little different is usually an avatar is just sort of what you look like, what your hair color is, your pant, what color your pants are. With this game, it's really much more about what your goals and dreams are. So a big part of the beginning of the game is that the player gets to create their avatar as they see them, what they want out of life, what they want for their future. And so they go into the game with this character that has everything that they want out of life embedded in them. So it should be a very powerful experience in terms of their connection with the character.
So this is this particular avatar.
This is one avatar.
And then what happens?
And then what happens is you see these sort of 12 stories, or what we call challenges, which relate to the 6 grades that you go through from 7th to 12th grade. So they're going through their life. They confront a series of challenges, stories, and then alongside that, they also have we have these mini games that they have to, basically these are the skill-based games that they practice
they do this
skills.
in like 3 seconds.
Oh yeah, I mean, kids sit down with this and they
Right.
figure these things out immediately. So for instance, no sense, this is a way for them to actually gain knowledge about all these different things, be it HIV, be it risky sex, drinking, cheating in school, sort of a whole sort of selection of risky behaviors. So this is the knowledge part of the game. Then there's priority sense, which is very much under development, which is where they're learning how to prioritize what's important, how do you make good choices.
How soon does this come out? You've got some development to do still. You said it's about 65%, and then you've got testing, because in every scientific world, you have to do a lot of testing.
Right.
So when does it come out, and how do kids find this? Do they find it in the schools?
So that's a great question. So the hope is that this, so again, this is, we should finish developing this winter, and then we will go through what's called a clinical trial, where we will test it to see how we do in terms of kids who play this game and kids who play another game that's completely unrelated to risk or HIV or anything else. And then we compare to see how they do in terms of what they tell us, and then also what they do in the game. The hope is that we should have that data within the next year or year and a half. And the hope is that we find that it's effective. The kids do better in terms of the choices they make, in terms of the behaviors they engage in. And then where kids could find it, I mean, that's really open. We're testing this in a handful of after-school programs. So this could be something that could be part of after-school programs, school programs.
Is this a global initiative that you're working on, or just in this country?
At this point, just in this country.
You're going to start small.
Start just in Elm City. But no, I mean, ultimately, I think what's beautiful about, especially about like an iPad, which is really considered a mobile technology, is that this could be translated ultimately, say, to cell phones. And in developing countries, cell phones are just everywhere. I mean, abundant, much more than internet. So the notion that we could put something that's effective, that's compelling, that kids want to play.
And how are you going to do that? Because this is a teaching tool. You're trying to stop risky behavior before that happens.
Right.
But you have to, and you're doing this in the right way, you're getting into the minds of children. So when they play a game and the outcome, a lot of kids will go, well, okay, I got this score. Let me see if I can get this score. So what are they working toward?
Right.
Have you gotten that far yet?
Yeah, so the idea is that, as I said, they start out with this avatar, and ultimately they end up, once they've gone through all the stories and they've accomplished, you know, using the skills that they've learned in these mini games, they end up with an epilogue, which will tell them how they did, based on what they started out really feeling was important, what their goals and aspirations were. Where did they end up? What does their epilogue look like? And then they're actually able to go back, and they can check in with their epilogue at any point and see how they're doing, and then go back and actually redo something again to see how it's actually impacted on their future. So you can go, it's sort of magical in a way, that you can go back and try to do it again and do it better and fix it, so that you get a sense of how it impacts on you right now, and then also how it impacts on the future you want to have.
Out of Play to Prevent, and this is the first game, PlayFoward. Have you already gotten, obviously you're going to see how this works with kids, but there must be more games coming, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done is we've really taken the time to build a process. So we've, you know, with the help of game developers, some commercial game developers, we're working with a development team down in Pittsburgh that does a lot of commercial work called Shell Games. We're working with consultants up in Maine as part of a company called Digital Mill. And, you know, and then a whole array of scientists. And so the idea is we've built this collaboration, and we've learned this process where we really take theory, we take scientific evidence, and we build it into each of these games. Each of these games, they can't just be fun and compelling, they have to work. And that's really the challenge. So they should be able to translate to different audiences, to different problems, obviously tweaking, you know, pretty seriously. But
did you ever think, as a physician, I asked this of you a little bit before we started taping, that you would be in a world in which we were going to teach through games? And how great would it be if indeed that happens, that you got kids to engage in a way so much that you did start to change behavior?
Right. Oh, I mean, I think it would be, changing behavior is, I've, you know, done a number of studies before starting with this that really, you know, conventional studies, you know, around behavior change. It is incredibly challenging. It is incredibly challenging to change anybody's behavior, physicians' behaviors, anybody's behavior. So it's very, very difficult. Hopefully with something like this, it'll be in such a way that it'll be compelling, it'll be meaningful, and they'll want to do it. You know, I mean, one of the trickiest things is getting people to engage in the process, and hopefully with this, they'll want to. I mean, even, you know, with my 13-year-old, he was play testing it the other weekend, and he just kept grabbing it out of my hands and saying, you know, I want to finish that. I need to try that again. And even that, you know, having that desire there and that interest and excitement has got to at least get you halfway there.
Well, good luck with your team.
Yes,
I hope to hear from you after the clinical trials are over.
Sure,
that this really worked.
We'll come back and tell you how it went.
Absolutely, and I look forward to the next game after this.
Great.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank
for coming
you.
on.
Sure, happy to.